common problems that people ask for you to help with?
So I think that probably the most commonly referred problem to people like me and to all my counterparts across the country would always be aggression. That is dogs and aggression. I'm not saying that that is the biggest problem out there, but it's the biggest referral that comes across to us because it is something that involves somebody getting hurt, and it involves a lot of emotion. So that probably is the most common from a dog point of view. From a cat point of view, again, biting cats. Nobody likes being bitten by the cat. So that is probably quite a commonly referred one. And spraying type behaviours. So cats spraying in the house, that's another commonly referred one. Then you've got anxious dogs. So people call it separation anxiety. So you've got that's a common one. And then I know that there's sort of, we've been talking birds in some of our meetings, etc., haven't we? So African grey parrots and plucking feathers, that is another common sort of where they'll pluck all the feathers from sort of down the chest area. That's another commonly referred one.
Right. What's the most unusual problem you've been asked to help with?
Most unusual one. So when I was running my own business, so I was working with the vets, a range of vets all of the time, and that's literally all I did. The vets that you work with get to know you really well. They get to trust you, and I had a case referred to me whereby the dog was pacing around the house, but in a pattern, and it would walk literally, if you can imagine a dining table with the chairs around the dining table, it would get out of its bed and it would walk to the table, and it didn't matter where the chairs were, it would walk around the table. And if the chair was in a position that it was walking, it wouldn't go around the chair, it would walk through the chair's legs. Right. So it would walk all the way until the owners would intervene and direct the dog to go back into its bed. So from that point of view, it was a case of working with the vet and the owners. It was definitely a medical problem. It was being displayed behaviourally, and obviously the people wanted to find out what was the best route, and the vet wanted to know what was the best route, because obviously it was all people were worrying about costs as well. So from my recommendation, I said that it wasn't a behavioural problem, it was a medical problem that was being displayed behaviourally. And I recommended that they had the dog tested for a couple of things that could have been neurological or could have been also impacting neurologically, so to do with the brain. And that was an unusual one, and that animal had something that was called a portosystemic shunt, and very very quick bit of information is basically the dog's body wasn't functioning properly, and its blood was actually in a way sort of poisoning the brain. And from that point of view, it was a relatively simple surgery for the vet to sort out, and the dog lived happily ever after and was a perfectly normal dog as soon as the surgery was done.
Very, very last question. Do you think caring for animals can improve our core life skills, and how?
I very much definitely think yes, they can. I think caring for animals, having animals is super important. I think it comes at it from lots of angles. Actually, just cuddling your dog or stroking your dog can lower your blood pressure, so reduces your heart rate. So from that point of view, they are good for you. They're good for you because they will also encourage you to get out and exercise. So you get fresh air, you get activity. So that is also good for you physically. And it's also good because it can help with social interactions. Having an animal, people will often chat to you more if you're out and about with be it walking your cat on the lead, or if you're playing with a cat in the garden, or walking the dog up the road. People will often talk to you more. So socially, it's really good. Can help people if they're feeling very vulnerable. It can soothe them, and they're just really good for your well-being. And then other things, because you're caring for another animal as well, that can also help with caring for other people. So it's that when you're having to care for something that is reliant upon you, that is also good for your responsibility and being accountable for something else. So it's a win-win situation all the way around.
Definitely. I've as you know, and anybody who I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks knows, I've got a puppy who's 13 weeks. I've never had a dog before. I've got 2 cats. I've found owning a dog very different to owning cats. And the thing that's it's made me realise is it's forced me to stick to a very strict routine, which actually has really, really helped me, especially when we're in the middle of a pandemic. You know, the routine starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, unfortunately. But, you know, it's written out, and it's quite strict because that's what my dog needs, with toilet breaks and walks and feeding. And I've found that very motivating, and it keeps me carrying on. And, you know, I organise my life and my work around my dog's routine, which has been nice. It's been really nice.
It is, it's good. And the one, you know, another part, I agree wholeheartedly with that, Claire, I really do. But as well with Maeve, that, you know, you've met on camera, my little working Cocker Spaniel, she makes me laugh every day. And I think just having something that you can talk utter rubbish to if you want to, I think is really good for you. And just some of the silly things that animals do, they just make you laugh, and that is good for you. It really is. And it stops me eating as much chocolate, because I think if you can get sort of that little interaction, that laughing and everything, I think is good for you, and it diverts me away from the chocolate bars.
Yeah, definitely. So I was wondering, on the subject to Dolly, if we could bring Dolly on the screen and wake her up from a nap, which I'm like, should I be doing that? I like her being asleep, to be honest, Jackie. And for you to do, so that the young people can see what like a mini consultation might look like, if I provide you with one of the plenty full of problems that we're going through with having a puppy at the moment. So I'll just nip and get her. This is Dolly. She's a cockapoo, a 75% poodle, and she is 13 weeks old. She sleeps in a crate at night. We've got her doing about 11 till about 5:45, which is a massive improvement on what we were doing in the beginning. However, which I'm sure you've already mentioned it, about separation anxiety, and it's going to be a massive problem with lots of dogs because of COVID. We're really, really struggling in terms of if I go to the toilet and things like that. If I left her to roam, if I went to the toilet, she would toilet all over the front room. And she's never ever does that because she's been toilet trained to go outside from day 2. So we leave her in the crate if I have to go upstairs to get dressed, or even if I have to go to the toilet. But there will become a time now that she's getting a bit better with a crate in the day, and I need to start leaving the house, and I don't know how to start that, and what's best to do. So we'd like to work up to an hour, 2 hours. So what could you advise that I do?
Okay, so if I was starting this as a proper consultation, then I'd be asking yourself lots of questions about where you got Dolly from, how old she was, what you'd done with her so far, And then I'd be asking the client, as I would call them, to tell me what the problems were that they had with Dolly, and to tell me in their own words, because I don't want to put words in a person's mouth, because I might interpret it differently. So if we sort of work on the things that you've talked about for Dolly, so what I would say at this moment in time is crate training is absolutely great. Great advocate of crate training, no issues with it whatsoever. What I would recommend is, if you're finding that you can't even leave her in the room loose to go upstairs to get changed or to go to the loo, then what I would say is you need to be able to do that. So simple things are, if you sat in the room that you're in now, and I know she's just woken up, so ultimately she'll need to go out, but if we pretend she's already been out to the toilet and that you know she's completely done, she doesn't need to go to the toilet at all, I'd make sure that she's comfortable at that point, and I would sit down doing some work or watching the telly or reading a book, whatever it is you would do, and then I would make sure that I was ignoring her for a good 5 or 10 minutes before I choose to get up. And then what I would do is I would get up in the room, and normally if Dolly would be like, oh, what are you doing? Where are you going to? And you might also talk to her at that point. I would get up, I would ignore her again. So don't talk to her, don't interact with her if she comes across, and maybe walk across the room, change the, I don't know, pick something up, pretend mess about doing something, then come back and sit down again, and then ignore her, and then do the same again after maybe a couple of minutes, and sit back down again. Then when you want to call Dolly across, ask her for some a sit, give her a pat on the head, and then ignore her again. And what you want to do is get to a point where your dog doesn't literally go, every time you move, literally go, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you off to? So it's a process that's called desensitizing them. So we need to desensitize Dolly to your movements. And the only way that you can do that is to not be interacting with her, and to get up, do something, change your routine. I know when we chatted previously, you said that it's very routine orientated, and the way that dogs are is they pick up on all of those routines, and their level of anxiety can increase because they know what you're about to do. So, and then you want to ultimately build it that you can go to the door, open the door, in the room that you're in now, open the door, and then in your head go, oh, change my mind, I'm going to come back and sit back down again. So again, Dolly will be like, oh, she's going to the door, what's she going to do? And then so the level of her anxiety will eventually start to decrease down, because you're desensitizing her to your movement. And then you gradually start to build that to going out the door, leave the door open, and then you build it to go out the door, count to 10, and come back in again.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really, really informative. It was an absolutely fantastic session, and I'm sure our SEND students are going to get a lot from that. So thanks for joining us.
You are very welcome. It's been my absolute pleasure. Anything I can do to help, happy to.
Oh, brilliant. So students, don't forget that you can check out the Creating Careers roadmap and evaluate today's session. You will also have the quiz to do after the session as well. All our other videos and resources are available on our website, which is growthplatform.org/talent/careers hub. If you've got any questions for ourselves or Jackie about courses at Myerscough, or route ways to being an animal behaviourist, then you can send them questions to careershub@growthplatform.org. Thank you for joining us.